Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Stacey Banks, and welcome to Securing Your Assets from Espionage. Stop the pillaging and keep your booty. Yeah, there might be some pirate themes tonight. Deal with it. Awesome. Just checking it's working. Okay, so, naturally, disclaimer. Everything is my sarcastic humor, non-attributable to past, present, future employers. Yeah, this is all on me. So, again, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a geek. I'm a pirate captain, triathlete. I've been doing IT for 16 years now. The last 12 I've focused on government contracting, and it's varied from everything from building high-performance computers to doing a lot of FSMA support. So there's a lot of experience to draw from a lot of angles for this. And at present, I'm currently a more recent employee of Tenable Network Security. So yes, I'm happy to be with the cool kids. So let's get this thing started. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about countermeasures and how we can, secure things. I'm going to try to keep it interesting. Of course, there is some of the technical aspects we do have to cover, of course. So I will talk about targets, methods, and the countermeasures. But first, just to really let it sink in,
Ice.
I did agree to this. So, espionage. Do I have to drink the whole thing, or?
Yes, ice. Twitter's bringing more. There are one Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Woo. For the most part, it involves finding a person who knows something or has something that you can induce them secretly to give to you. That almost always involves a betrayal of trust. This is Aldrich Ames, one of our more recent spies that did a lot of bad stuff. So, he really knows what he's talking about. And, for the most part, it does involve exploiting these connections that we have. And it can be minor connections, it could be major connections. There doesn't even have to be a connection. Because, honestly, we're human, and we are the most vulnerable link in our security. So that's really why this is so important. We are the weakest link. Exactly. You guys are great. Now, this was something that came up on the news today, and this is just kind of one of these, the media doesn't necessarily get things right all the time. So,
What? Really?
It's kind of like defining hackers. They want to label us badly. So, the title is Disgruntled Workers Hacking Employers is on the Rise. But when you actually look down, and I'm not sure how well this is showing up there, but it says, the workers use services like Dropbox Inc.'s cloud storage or software that lets them gain remote access to corporate networks and trade secrets. Now, that's not exactly hacking. That's just utilizing services that we have access to for data exfiltration. And really, this is more on the side of bad network security. And this is something that we will cover later on. But just to point out, there's a lot of sensationalism out there in regards to what hacking is. And I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with bad definitions at this point. Thank you. This is one of those, I have to set the stage, you know, I have to do these are the laws that exist. So, for business espionage, we have the Economic Espionage Act of 1996. And this is what really set up things for having an actual law where we can go after people that are doing things like stealing and trading trade secrets. Because our intellectual property nowadays, with everything being so data-driven, those who own the data, those are the people that can really make the movements. Money is still very much a part of it, but it's really the data that is controlling who has access to things. And just look at everything that's going on. Once you have the access, you can do anything. Although money really helps. But this actually sets the precedent. This gives it to where the feds can go after people and actually charge them in the theft of trade secrets. And trade secrets are defined as a secret formula, method, or device that gives you an advantage over your competitors. And this is basically, you've designed something hot and new, and you've got to the market first, and this helps you get an edge. Because really, the only edge we have is getting there first and beating out our competition. So if people are doing any of these methods to get into our networks, steal our intellectual property, make copies, and sell them on the cheap, well, suddenly those millions of dollars we've invested in doing research and development, it goes away. And you have China knockoffs for $5 when you need to sell it at $100 to actually make a return on your investment. And that really hurts the ingenuity of our system. Because unfortunately, a lot of R&D is a very heavily front-loaded system. And again, I'm kind of front-loading on the technical data, and then we'll get into the fun stuff. Bear with me. So, the driving forces behind all of this. Corporations are going to save a lot of money if they can steal your ideas and your research. You've slaved away for a year or two developing some awesome new algorithm that's going to speed up search engines, and it's going to be the next thing way better than Google. Everyone's going to want that. They're going to be looking for all your weaknesses to get into your system, steal that, and beat you to the market. Because that's really what determines market share. Who's there first? Not who has the better product, not project, but who actually gets there first, who gets the name out there, and who captures the attention. Sadly, you don't necessarily have to have a better product, you just have to have better marketing and timing. That's the winner. Of course, individuals also have a huge gain and a stake in this because, well, as people, we tend to be greedy. So a lot of people will do it for money. Some people are going to do it because, frankly, they're pissed off. They might have a bone to pick with their current or past employer, so they might sell something. Or, you know, even their government. I'm sure we know a lot of people in the news recently that have done things like this, yes. So there are a lot of motivations for people to go through this on both sides, both the payee and the payer. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a financial gain. Some people are just looking to get the information out and to ruin someone else. Revenge is a huge motivator, often more motivating than money. Who knew? We're humans, we're weak. So, when we look at this, Obviously, we have a variety of targets. It's not necessarily a huge variety of targets. There is a limit to what you can actually get. But by and large, it includes things like trade secrets mostly. Your things that you have gone off, done a trademark, filed a patent on. They want to get an edge on that and beat you to the market. Client lists can also be a huge thing. Hey, get access to someone's conference room, get on their network. Who knows what you can download? Personnel records, just being able to, steal some key personnel, oh my God, the brain drain alone. People sometimes are worth more than the actual knowledge, because if you've managed to get somewhere and you can steal away key people, not only have you stunted their progress, you've sped up your own. And obviously they're going to be coming with the knowledge of what they've done for that other product, which will end up being integrated. Brain drain is a very real thing. Of course, business development marketing, you'll see this across both commercial sector and public sector. Knowing how much your competition is bidding, oh yeah, that is a huge bonus. And that's actually one of the things that will get you dumped out of a bid for federal contracts if you have an inside kind of track to knowing what the bidding rate is. So, things to think about. Things like deniable plausibility. Yeah, they tend to be issues. And of course, research and development. Hey, if you can get the designs for the next big plane that Boeing's developing, dude, that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of time. And everybody knows it. So with that, where do our threats come from? We have external and internal threats. But the thing is, our internal threats, they're both intentional. The people that they want to screw us over, they're upset. They didn't get a pay raise. They've been, undervalued. Or, they just don't like your management style. Whatever their problem is, they're intentionally setting out to wreck the system. Then there's the people that, they kind of knock the Coke can over on a server, or, they trip over a plug and they unplug critical systems and everything goes down. There's accidents, but they also contribute to this because they can be a huge hindrance in the continuation of things. And of course, foreign governments, hey, it's not just about the next big, fighter plane. It's about minor things like the next processor. We have to consider that there's a lot of angles here, because business isn't just about businesses making money. That also feeds into our governments making money through taxation and other methods. So there's a huge investment from multi-tiers. And of course, I guess I really should have relabeled this crackers, but, hackers, hacktivists, people that are looking to make a difference electronically, people that want to free the information, and, just people that want to screw things up, to put it a little more nicely. So, and this is just to highlight the key methods that I'm going to go through. I'm going to kick off a scenario in a moment. So, key methods that people are usually going to use when they're setting out to get this information from you. You're going to see them using like Delphi and Pretexting methods, obviously computer hacking, or what people consider hacking. and open source intelligence, because, oh my god, the things that are posted out there, hey, it's a new world. You don't have to do much work. So, I'm going to start talking about these methods in a little more detail, and I'm going to try to put it into scenarios and just make it more interesting. So with this, for this scenario, consider that our company, they've got a new technology. It's bleeding edge. They've got something really awesome coming out. And this industry has a steep entry cost. It requires a lot of R&D efforts to get a product out there, several years in the making. So people are looking to cut corners. They want to get there fast, they want to get there now, and they want to make their money. Because, as we all know, investors are impatient. They want to see that return. And if not, they're going to start cutting. So in this scenario, I'm going to borrow from Office Space. So the good guys are in a tech, and the bad guys are in a trode. I figured you guys could probably relate to this one. So, just to set it up and give you an explanation of what everything is. So, Delphi and Pretexting attacks. So, obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone here is well aware of what social engineering entails. Yeah, pretty much it's a confidence scan, more or less. You act like you belong, you convince people you belong, and you get them to give you what you want. Hey, it works great. But there are several ways you can utilize this. And this includes things like going to conferences. Conferences, surveys, and information volunteers. And we'll touch on all that. So, you have the Bobs. What would you say you do here? Well, consider this. You go to a conference. You're hanging out at the bar. Another geek walks up. Hey, how's it going? Let me buy you a drink. Oh my god. Did you see that Capitals game last night? Can you believe it? Oh, that was awesome. So you start talking. You start geeking out over common interests in hacking, whatever the topic is. But then they start talking a little more specific. But you're a couple beers in. You don't necessarily see where it's going. And all of a sudden, they're asking you a lot more pointed questions about your project. But it's awesome because someone finally cares. And they're like, oh my god, that is the most interesting thing ever. Tell me more. How on earth did you figure that out? Wow. My mind just... There's a lot of ego feeding involved. You guys are awesome. But, some people need the ego feed, and they buy into it. And then they just start answering more questions and more questions. This also falls in line with those random surveys you'll get. Hi, we're conducting a survey. We're calling from Computer Magazine. Could you tell us what kind of servers you have? Oh, you have Windows, Linux. Oh, what versions? What kind of software do you run on that? And then they're getting more detailed information, version types and everything. And this is more or less a social engineering method of running an in-map scan against you. They're getting the information for what versions you have, and then they can go through and they can target you a lot quicker and a lot easier. And they haven't actually set about making a footprint on your network by doing a in-map scan. Because, hey, they're just calling up your sysadmin and saying, hey, we'd like to award you with a free subscription. Can you tell us some information so we can send you a better magazine and, maybe send you a free conference or something? It's amazing what you can get by offering people something for free. Who would have thought? Oh, wait, that's right, marketing. You can laugh. Or not, that's your choice. So obviously, we're weak. But also, our computers are too, because, well, let's face it, we are the weakest link, and when humans are involved, things are going to happen. It's kind of the law. So with that, we have issues about computers. Not everybody secures our systems to the level that we should. Sometimes we're lazy. Sometimes it's project requirements because, you know, honestly, how many of you have had the thing where we need it to work? We don't care if it's secure, we need it to work, and it needs to work now. And this is what we're usually up against in security. So it's facing the issue of what's going to break if we implement a patch, if we implement more anal retentive security requirements. And it's kind of a grudge match because, honestly, even when we are involved from the start for development of a system, it's still a fight to get things implemented because there's always a timeline for getting things done and making sure it works. Because the end users are more important than our security. Never mind what it may expose. I'm sorry, I'm a cynic. Well, you know, what's the joke? You know you're a Unix admin when you see a bumper sticker that says users are losers and you don't think they're talking about the war on drugs. That's a little 80s, but, you know, still applicable. So with that, you know, obviously we can't control things when it's a zero-day hack. It's new, it's edgy, we have to roll with the punches. That's just the way it goes. It's not something we can plan for. You know, we can be proactive, we can think like the attacker, we can attack our systems, do penetration testing, you know, and really work at securing our systems and trying to make our developers understand our side of things and management. But then there are continual problems that we have. You know, brute force, this still exists. We have, you know, weak encryption on password files saved in clear text even. You know, cross-site scripting, people not changing factory default passwords. You know, it's 2014 and people still don't change factory default passwords. Hey, I'm not judging. Really, I am. And, you know, of course, things like bring your own devices, which, you know, it also brings viruses and other issues. And can somebody just create, you know, it's like we have USB condoms. Can we create a general bring your own device condom that, like, firewalls everything?
Use for plastic.
Well, you know, BOF had a method for that. It was called alert. If you don't know what it is, see me after. But again, this pretty much sums up most of security's feelings for how things are not necessarily implemented. Sometimes technology it's not technology itself. It's just poor implementation and not adhering to our industry best standards. And if you want to know about compliance, feel free to see me after. And I'm sure everyone's well aware of open source intelligence. Oh my God. The amount of information on the internet. It is such a treasure trove. You can find out so much just from, you know, press releases, you know, newsletters, individual blog posts. Oh my God, the things that people reveal. Twitter, Facebook. Oh my God, social media has been a boon to, how can I rephrase this so I don't have to get iced again? To corporate spying. There we go. It's a replacement. It's not an exact wording, and you didn't specify. Loophole. I'm sure most of you, or most likely I would expect all of you, are familiar with the scene, you know. Corporate accounts payable. Nina speaking. There is so much information you can get from just very basic things. But, you know, just to give you a basic example. So, I mean, back during World War II and the Cold War, well, mostly the Cold War, you know, the Russians would actually send their people over. They wouldn't have to do, you know, too much in-depth work, recruit. I mean, they'd still do all the standard stuff, recruit their assets and everything. But there was so much they could do just getting newsletters from military bases and, you know, other similar information sources. They take, you know, you have things like, hey, this naval base is christening this new cruiser, and it's, you know, going to be going off to this destination on, you know, August 1st. You know what? These are things that, you know, get announced because we're proud of our advancements and something awesome is happening, but the enemy can use it against us. And this is very much true in the corporate world as well. I mean, we have competition everywhere. Yeah, what's the dog-eat-dog world? You know, that's just the reality of it. So, what can we do in order to kind of stem the flow of information, slow things down? Obviously, we need to implement better information security, physical, personnel security, and training, because let's face it, how many people take Peter's approach to things? You know, they're not really missing it. They just don't really care anymore. So, what exactly can we do in order to improve things? Well, we do have these things called security baselines, which you can find from a variety of locations, including the government. You know, we have NIST as a good source, ISO. You know, these are all things that we can build from. You know, in some instances you are required to, but in other instances, such as the corporate world, you can elect what you're going to implement. But they're all kind of driven from a base model of best practices. And that's really what we're looking for. You know, we kind of want to take what has worked, what's been proven true, and we want to build on that. And with that, you know, obviously, we need continuous testing. You know, governments move to continuous monitoring model, where, you know, you're constantly testing, and this is the way it should be. Really, every month, you should be running your scans. You should be testing your system, seeing what's new. Because, you know what? Something has failed, something's had to be rebuilt, and, yeah, something's rolled back. So suddenly you're missing patches, and you have a vulnerability out there, and you really need to know that exists. Let's face it, not all backups are up to date. It happens. People, we fail. Of course, actually using encryption, you know, no more password files maintained in clear text, actually encrypting those, you know, using live encryption for live data, encrypting data at rest. I mean, these are things to be considered. Of course, intrusion detection systems. You know, it's common sense, but it's common sense for us. It's not common sense necessarily for business entities in management, because unfortunately, security, well, you know, we're a cost center. We're not necessarily a profit center unless we're directly involved with client consultations, and we're going out and we're helping a client get secure. So when we're internal, we're a cost center, and we have to fight against that. We have to prove that we have value, that we have a return on investment, and that they need to be throwing money at us, because there is a risk. You know, it may not necessarily be credit card data, but there is an inherent risk, because everyone has some form of intellectual property that they need to maintain their edge. And of course, you know, data classifications. It's not just a government issue. In the commercial sector, you have to consider, what is a trade secret? You know, what do you value? What's your holiest of holies versus what do you really not care about? And if you're dealing with things like customer data and credit card data, banking data, these are all things that need to be secured a lot more. And, well, we've seen all the breaches. There's a lot of issues out there that we still need to address. And just for giggles. Not everybody has the people skills. Yeah. Which, you know, kind of leads us into physical and personnel security. You know, nowadays we have an issue in regards with bring your own device. Huge issue. Because you have everything from USBs where, you know, you have DoD, specifically like Pentagon, where, you know, USB has been turned off. It's been filled with superglue, so you can't even, you know, try to force something to happen. You know, because there's people like us that'll find a way around it. Hey, why not, right? But, you know, there's other concerns as well, you know. How many places can you take, you know, your cell phone into? Everyone, well, mostly everybody has a smartphone. Some people still have old phones. You know it. But, you know, you bring it in. There's so much you can launch off of these things. And you just get connection to the wireless, hey, it's just asking for something to happen. Of course, we need to consider things like who has access. Because, honestly, how many programs are actually continuously reviewing on a, you know, not daily, but on a regular enough basis, who has access to what? Your sysadmin gets moved over to security. Well, suddenly they have different permissions. You know, they should have access to security-based logs, but they shouldn't be able to do certain other things. You know, it's a separation of duties, and these things need to be maintained. But there's not necessarily that continuation of, you know, checks and balances. I mean, background checks, that's come and go, but a background check doesn't necessarily mean anything nowadays. I don't think I need to go further than that. Credit checks, you can have bad credit, you can have good credit, that doesn't mean you're a good individual. All that means is you are or aren't good with money. That's just my opinion. And of course, reference checks, yeah, those things can be faked really good. And let's not forget, you know, when we're talking about personnel and physical security, you know, you need these checks and balances, because when you have things like, yeah, he should have been fired actually 2 years ago, but there was an issue and that never went through payroll.
There was a glitch.
Yes, there was a glitch. They fixed the glitch. Thank you very much. That just leads to future problems. So aside from installing a whole lot of fire alarms and smoke detectors, what can we do?
Give him a damn stapler back.
A stapler and a paycheck, too, because, you know, that was the pivotal moment. So, I mean, a lot of it really comes down to training and getting people to do, well, what security wants them to do. Let's face it. We want them to do it, but we need to give them, you know, some motion on it. We need to help encourage them, explain it to them so they understand it. And I know there's varying opinions, positive, negative, on a lot of these professional certifications, but it's one of those things that a lot of places take these things serious. So just in terms of training and, you know, professional presentation. So, you know, there is a certified confidentiality officer, which is offered through the, and I'll do this at the end after I finish, okay? It's through the Business Espionage Countermeasures and Countermeasure Association. Certified Information System Security Professional. I know there's a lot of strong opinions on that. And Certified Protection Professional, which is a lot more on the physical side of things, but it's essential. And just various professional training. You know, we need to stay up to date. But, you know, we also need to be pushing back, explaining to management, there is a return on the investment. We're not a cost center. We're actually saving you money in the long run, because if you implement this security, well, guess what? You're not going to be a couple million in the hole because you're on the next web breach. And these are things we need to explain. So when we're thinking about, is this good for the company? Well, there's a lot of interpretation to that. And it really comes down to, really, at the base of it, return on investment. And, you know, we need to spend some time and come up with a better way so we stop looking like we're a cost center, because really we're a benefit center. We're protecting everything. And, you know, we're making things work. Yes. You know, a $10 stapler is going to save the building. And that is basically it for me. Does anybody have any questions, comments, heckling?
Is there any particular phrase or story you can tell executives to get them to actually believe that you're not a cost center, that you're actually like the plugs in the bucket of money, that you're preventing the leakage of money? That's always the biggest problem, is convincing them that, no, we're not a cost center, we're a savings center. We don't generate money, but we stop you losing money.
So basically, is there something we can present to the executives that, you know, we're not a cost center? And there's actually a whole conference around, you know, security and return on investment. And seriously, there's a security economics-based conference out there. It's all security metrics. Yeah. I'm not that geeky on.
Well, they don't look at the actual data for what we find. They're just worried about the metrics of it. So, you know, they don't have as much reason to drink.
It's management. They want dashboards. You know, make up some nice pie charts. I mean, really, it's going to come down to your own issues and where you can show the return on investment. So a lot of it is looking at, you know, what are the current breaches out there? How much have they lost? How much have they had to invest in, say, you know, reissuing credit cards or, you know, canceling, you know, fraudulent charges, and then turning that around and saying, well, hey, if you'd implemented this system that I told you about 6 months ago, we wouldn't have had this breach, and you would have saved $5 million in all this.
Also creating situational awareness of metrics, showing like this is how many attempts to firewall that has a stop, this is how many alerts we got the right idea, this is understanding of the stuff that they gateway, showing them actual numbers so they can tangibly see
So
A lot of trending.
Writing up a report that I spent a week in the office in a mohawk and a kilt and nobody said squat about it. Didn't check the fact that I had a fake badge or anything like that.
Include pictures.
got the whole day.
Anyone else? Yes?
So, how do you deal with people that want to view compliance as an end and not an incremental measurement mechanism?
Other than roasting them on a stick.
Oh, you mean compliance as a checklist? Wow. I'm really going to try to not go on a rant on that, but I've dealt with that. A lot of it is really just, you try to work with them, try to explain that, it's not just, we just say, yes, we do this and we get a check box. It's, no, we have to do this. The auditors are coming through and explaining to them the issues, but also explaining things, depending on your environment. I mean, if you're in a government environment, whether you're a contractor or a government employee, it makes things a little easier in being able to say, look, this isn't a reflection on you as a sysadmin or a manager. It's just a reflection on the current environment, and say, look, we don't have X, Y, and Z. We need this much funding so we can implement it. And then, that ends up getting into a request through having these issues, and you can get more funding, hopefully address the issues, and it's presenting it in, where you're not being confrontational, you're being helpful. And, this is also where interpersonal communication comes into play. And being able to communicate in both technical and management speak and explain it in two different paths and say, this is what we need and this is what needs to happen, and make them understand it. In a commercial sector, I have to admit I'm still kind of doing my burn-in phase into that sector. I've, only recently left government contracting, so, but I'm learning the language. There's still a bit of similarity, though.
What is the methodology to convince, companies that compliance is not security? They're not either.
Yes. Just because you meet your compliance requirements doesn't mean you're secure. It's not the end-all, be-all. There are still issues out there. You still need to be, be aware of what the top trends are, what your top issues are, and that's part of, having a really robust continuous monitoring. You're doing monthly scanning. You're verifying, false positives, false negatives, and it's just part of having a good network set up. And if you don't, trying to communicate with management that we need to invest time and money into this.
I'm asking because I can think of an instance where we've been on site. We try to explain to them that you're compliant, you're meeting the requirements. Your golden boy that you guys love is stealing you alive. He is robbing you as he is going away to your competition, and we had physically disconnected a server that he had set up exclamation points on. But they had trusted this. He's a smart guy, but they weren't following the very simple principle of the two-man rule. It was one guy, and he was awesome, and he was going to competition, and he just decided, I can't directly access what I want. I will set up a jump box here. It will speak on the network, and then it will speak out to what I need to speak to. And you just explain to them, you're fully compliant, you're fully on to that guy.
Was he auditing himself?
Yeah.
He was excluding himself from audits, and had been doing so for 3 years. So he had planned to leave and just knew, I'm taking your trade secrets.
Oh, man. A lot of that is, part of that is capturing it in the act, and obviously a lot of after the fact of seeing what's gone on. And, obviously you have to be, at that point, kind of proactive, shut the connections down, but also gather some information. So you can go back and say, look, this happened, and, kind of document where, people put too much trust in compliance. Compliance is great. It helps you meet a minimum. But that's the thing. It's the minimum baseline. It's not the be-all, end-all.
I've always found that there's a certain amount of you have to do what we do best, just go over the top. And, finding situations where, yes, you're compliant, but safe, way, and then using that as, yes, compliance is a good baseline, but do better. There's best practices and you might kind of better practices above and beyond. And sometimes that does require you to put your ass up there and apply and do some criteria.
We have to educate management, basically.
Something like this. You go through the compliance thing and say, look, it's not, you don't have to really do anything, right? You say, here's a breakdown where compliance, you're doing a ZIPO, PCI, where the compliance sector is. You say, this is stable process. What if I was doing X, Y, Z? I don't have to touch the computer. You say, where here's the stuff.
No, that's a great way to get the point across, doing tabletops and showing them an example. And if they still don't get it, take it to a lab. Set up an environment and walk them through it. Show them where they're vulnerable and say, look, we have to go above and beyond.
The problem a lot of people have is they think that compliance is bad. That's their whole job in the world, right?
That used to be my whole job in the world.
Telling them that compliance sucks, so therefore you're useless, and now they're already going to be against.
But
compliance has a very real need in the world. Compliance is not security, security is not compliance. Most companies do have a compliance department, a governance risk group, they have an enterprise risk management group, of which information security reports into. You really need a multifaceted approach to these. These aren't exactly easy answers, I come up with some nut job theory of how something's going to break in, but at the end of the day, it comes down to dollars and cents, which is why it comes up to your enterprise risk management appetite, and risk management strategy.
And that's a good point. I mean, there's so many facets to security, but unfortunately, through everything, we've kind of been put in our own little silos. And we kind of have to break out of that silo mentality, and we need to start working together. It's not, compliance alone is not going to solve the problem. That's just going to get us to a baseline. We need to work with everyone else, make sure we have a really good baseline that incorporates our architecture for security and enterprise architecture, so that, when projects are actually starting, we're there, we're integrated, and they care more about the big picture, ensuring that the data is secure, and not just that things work.
Where I worked out well has been, it's like both of them, the Joker, the Dark Knight, throwing chaos in the situation with one of those lines, is that, he's technically my manager. My manager, all of it. It's a case of, you can do the tabletop and everything like that, and say, well, let's stick this guy on it. And just that has some value.
It works extremely well in the boardroom. You call in me, the nice happy suit and everything else, and I start talking, theoreticals and everything else, and you get to a debate, and I'm like, well, give me a second, come on over, we'll watch freaking associate, like you do with dirty work. We watch with an iPad, fully environment, big flashy red things, big demo. I said, Moses, now you have two choices. We're lucky this works for us. He's doing this internally. I've got 50,000 more of these out at DEFCON that will do it for free, just to get to look at it and go.
There almost needs to be like that kind of blackmailing around with a reason.
There's nothing wrong with blackmail.
Way down the wall, dialing up the booths.
So we need to wrap. We need to wrap? All right. All right.
Ice, 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 ice.
Oh, God. So I guess that's it. If you want to reach me, this is my Twitter handle. It is my real name, yes. So, cheers, everyone.